1922 was a very good year, and we surely hope that 2002 is going to be a very good year too. Calvin Castine, Gordy Little here at the Senior Center on Elm Street in Plattsburgh to kick in a brand new year on the second day of January 2002 by going backwards. Have you ever heard of such a thing? New Year's, I believe, is a good time for nostalgia. And I was a New Year's baby in 1937, and some of the people in this room at the Senior Center in Plattsburgh were New Year's babies, perhaps when this book in front of me was printed, and some of them even before that. This book is a 1969 reprint of a Montgomery Ward catalog from 1922. So it would be 80 years old now. It says on the cover 1872, Golden Jubilee 1922. It's interesting for people like me to open it up and look at the fashions that were in existence 15 years before I was born. But it will be tremendously interesting to get the opinions of the folks who are here at the Senior Center who are in their 80s and 90s to look through here. One of them already walked by and said, wait a minute. That skirt is coming back into vogue. As we say at the end of the program, you never know what we're going to do next time. Calvin called me on the telephone this very morning and said, Gordy, I got this catalog on eBay. What do you think about getting some senior citizens together and going through it and looking at it? And I said, guess what? It'll be a wonderful idea for many reasons. First of all, when Calvin and I did a recent program walking through the Champlain Center North, nostalgia, talking about what stores were there and weren't there in the past and what stores in downtown Plattsburgh had closed, think about this wonderful organization that was around for all those years, which doesn't even exist as we go into the brand new year of 2002. They called it the Romance of Montgomery Ward and Company. Let me read just the first couple of paragraphs, and then we'll begin our discussions with the citizens here at the Senior Citizens Council. Was that a prophetic sentence? Oh boy. He knew that for him and the people he expected to serve by mail, there was one and only one principle that could be the cornerstone of his business. The golden rule in spirit and fact. Don't you love this writing? An idea that if he started a mail order catalog, people could shop from the comfort of their own homes. Guess what? We shop from the comfort of our own homes now in the place where Calvin got this book, and it's called eBay. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. There is no more Montgomery Ward. Sorry if you have a back house behind the barn. You won't be able to use any more Montgomery Ward catalogs unless you had them stashed. We're going to go through this catalog with some of the folks that are here at the Senior Center and just see what these old images elicit. This could be one of the most charming programs we've ever done for our little corner. So don't go and get your soda or your beer now. Wait till, about an hour. But our first customer, tell us who you are.
Well, wait a minute before you turn on the light. I'm Marguerite Tosh, but they all call me Peg.
I know Peg Tosh.
Yeah.
I know lots about you. We've watched you here for a long time. You were singing songs when we came in. You were around the piano. We thought, Calvin and I thought, if we had this old catalog, that maybe it would bring some memories. And before I even opened the book, you said your mother did what?
She used to prepare a shopping list, for spring, and she'd tear open the old Sears and Roebuck catalog and plan what she was going to get, and for clothing for the family, especially hose and shoes. And it was always around the 1st of March. She'd tear open the catalog, and she'd have 2 or 3 my brothers they weren't interested really in clothes, but I was. When she looked at the shoes and the hose, and they were all old-fashioned. Oh boy, this is going on. Old-fashioned hose. And
But it was hard to get to stores back in those days, if there were any stores where you lived, so you had to order through the catalog.
That's right. And everything was, cheaper in those days. And they gave all the information one needed to buy a coat, or they gave the length of the coat and so on, the color. But the prices were so much lower than they are.
Well, take a look.
comparatively.
Take a look right now. This is a 1922 catalog. So you were 12 years old. No?
We'll let it go at that.
So you might have looked through this very same catalog when you were a youngster, say, "Oh, I wish I could have that." And look, now we're on page 5. It says selecting New York styles for you.
Of course, the salaries that the farmers were getting were so low that naturally they had to base their charges on various coats and out of ready to wear had to go along with the salaries that they received. And so that's why things were kept at that price, at
We're
very
just
low.
going to turn some pages. Look.
Oh, dear.
We're on page 6 now. Genuine seal plush coats.
My
The
mother
very
had
newest.
one. I got to tell you a story. He says, "I want you to get a new coat." And my mother said, "Well, I don't think I need one. I don't go out enough." And he said, "That makes no difference." He said, "We go to church, we go to the store, and you've got to get a coat." She always had that black seal, this guy. And she said, "I'm going to keep that." Every end of the season, she'd wrap that coat in a cotton, like a pillowcase, and she'd put it away in the attic until the cold weather came, and she'd take it out and gave it about 2-3 months.
Hope that the moths didn't get in it.
No, somehow it never did. We had a dark room. She placed this covered coat and there was ventilation, so I don't remember.
I remember my mother putting mothballs around in the closet.
Oh,
too.
I think she did that too. But it left an awful smell.
But
Strong.
see what a wonderful
Isn't
story. Just looking at the genuine seal plush coats for $15.75 and $12.98, and even a silk
One
seal
I could
plush.
go buy. No, I had one just like that.
Did you? that why they would call it? Remember when I was a youngster, they called a coat a wrap.
That is true.
A wrap
That
or a
is very
cloak.
true. Yes.
Or a cloak.
Well,
And
a
in
rat
school we-
actually was shorter than this style right here.
Was it?
Yes. It was something one threw over their shoulders and came to the elbow length. That was a wrap.
But I can remember when we went to school, we used to put our coats in a cloakroom.
That's correct.
They called it a cloakroom, so they must
Right.
have called the coats cloaks.
That is correct. Now, rarely did one see a wrap when one was going to school, perhaps in church, but a wrap was supposed to be a little more dressy.
Oh, aren't these beautiful? Just take a look.
Ward, that's where
That's
Mom
Montgomery Ward, which
yeah.
doesn't even exist anymore.
No,
Right?
but it was you had to send an order to.
Yeah, they started out as a catalog, and then we got Montgomery Ward. These are beautiful fur coats.
Orange for 20 years.
In downtown Plattsburgh. Oh,
And
boy.
then I was manager over to Beverly Pearls.
Were you really?
Yes. And I worked there until I was called by the base, my husband who was working at the base. Let me see. He was engineer and he was badly hurt. He was working the hangar with his men and he fell. The airman he had under him did very little work. Joe always ended up the job doing it himself to make a good report at night before he left. And it was while I was working at Beverly Pearls that I got a call from the base that my husband had an accident. He was now in the hospital. So I had to leave. I never went back to any kind of work for years afterwards. I stayed with my husband.
Isn't that amazing? But you had a long look at the dresses. Now we're on. They already told me that they'd wait until you were finished with this interview. We're going to stop pretty soon because you're going to have to go and eat.
Yeah, I
Line's
did.
getting short.
The line's getting short, so we're going to stop this for a moment, then we'll come back and talk
All
after
right,
you
good.
eat, okay?
Thanks,
Peg. Well, most of the people here at the Senior Center have finished their noontime meal, and we're going to continue to look through this 1922 Montgomery Ward catalog. 1922. First of all, tell us who you are.
My name is Rita Martineau.
I knew that, Rita, but I wanted everybody to know that.
Okay.
And what's your name?
Annette Facto.
Annette, delighted to be here. I've been here many times with these seniors. Let us just, what do you remember? What do you remember about catalogs? Ordering things from catalogs many, many years
Well,
ago.
my family used to order a lot of stuff from Spiegel's.
Spiegel catalog, I forgot them. Yes.
Oh, yeah, they were good. My aunt that brought me up used to deal a lot with them. Her and my cousin used to order every Christmas from Spiegel's, and they had really good stuff. You know, it was really nice.
Oh, that's amazing. And this Montgomery Ward's doesn't even exist anymore.
No, it
But
doesn't.
these are the Ward's catalogs, and just leaf through there and tell me if you remember any of these things as you both look through here. You could buy blankets.
Yeah,
These are babies' blankets, I think.
I think so.
You could buy so many different kinds of things in this catalog. For children and for adults. You could buy almost anything in a catalog back in those
You
days,
sure
couldn't
can.
you, huh?
Oh, yes.
This would be 1922. Now, here's a...
That's before me.
But, look at, here's one on page... Do you have a button box?
Oh, yes.
Do you? Mm-hmm. And I bet you some of the buttons are as old as you are.
They probably are.
No,
Really?
when I came to United States, I brought very little, you know. So I'm not the ordinary kind.
But people save buttons. I know we have buttons in our house that date back well over 100 years.
Go away.
My mom has. You know what I wanted to ask you? Other people remember linoleum salesmen going from house to house with a roll on his shoulder and try to sell it to you for like $12 or so for your kitchen floor.
And I wouldn't be surprised if you could buy linoleum right in the money.
Can you?
You can buy oilcloth.
I
buy
don't
the-
think so. Yes, you can. I saw some just last week, and I think it was Walmart's, but I'm not.
You gotta be kidding.
No.
I haven't even
like
thought
this.
of
Oh, I haven't
oilcloth.
seen that in a long time.
This is a oilcloth, right?
Well, it certainly looks like what we used to call oilcloth,
Plastic, so-
Oh, but plastic was made from, oilcloth was made from a different substance, but it's the same concept.
It is. Long time before he got to that stage.
I'm the one turned it.
Now, when you buy just the top hat, it's $22.
Yeah. So that
You know,
was 37 cents.
but
Oh,
they
yes.
buttoned down, didn't they?
They certainly
They
did.
had a button in the middle, in the
Yeah.
back, and they
That's why they call them collar buttons.
Yeah, they buttoned
buttons.
down.
And I'm not sure.
That jolted my memory.
Well, that's the whole idea of coming here today is to look through the catalog. Look at some of the children's
The kids
suits.
call it.
Kids were in That's New how York. old I was. I lived on the river, Yeah. and we
1922.
built our own rink, and the
Did
boys.
you really?
Yeah. On Pine Street.
Look at the cowboy suits.
When I
For the
first
kid?
went to teach in the country, I went from the city, and I didn't look at the school or anything. But when I got there was no electricity and no bathrooms.
Uh-oh.
And I'm telling you, that was a shocker.
Where was this?
And
now?
no, this was up in Moore's Forks,
Oh.
Kenneth Corners, actually.
And nobody wasted any time in the winter. In the summertime, in the summertime, sometimes you had to go out and see what was going on. And the boys used to knock out the knot holes. The girls would complain, and they'd put new ones in. And the first thing you know, they were gone. My first 2 years of teaching was something.
I don't know why you people inspire me, but I'm inspired to tell a joke, a real cute joke about a privy that I read somewhere this morning. The back house, the privy. And this gentleman who ran some kind of a little convenience store, people would come and say, do you have the restrooms? He'd say, point down right there over the hill. And over the hill he had a privy. But what he did was rig up a little speaker inside. And when people would go and use the facilities, as they say, he would wait till they got there and close the door, and then he'd speak into the microphone, and you know what he'd say? He'd say, "Can you please use the other side? We're painting down here underneath this one."
Yeah, because it was too older.
Yeah. I imagine it was, you see. You do remember, don't you, huh?
See,
Well, look at-
we still have one up in Fern Lake.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, we do. You know, have an inside and an outside. And when they have a big party, the women can use the inside and the men all go outside. And a couple of the little kids happened to go into the inside, and then he said, "Outside was it?" Yeah, the outside. And he said, "Gee, wouldn't this be nice? He said, 2 people could sit here together and talk."
And you don't even have to flush, right?
That's right, yeah.
We were talking about using this paper
Yes, we were, about the old
over here
catalogs.
at the table this morning. And the thing is, Sears catalog had a different kind of paper. They had it sometimes smooth,
It was smooth and glossy.
and we were all laughing.
That wasn't
about,
too very good, was it?
Use that one first to use the other one.
Listen, you're talking to somebody who knows from memory because, as you know, a lot of the rural areas were not electrified, even here in northern New York, until the late 1940s, some of them. You know, when FDR came along, decided to electrify America, or try to electrify America, in the 40s the project started, but right up until then, and even some cases into the early 50s, there were a lot of places here in the North Country that didn't have indoor plumbing or electricity, right?
About your teaching up in...
Yes, I started teaching in ¡38.
Let's find out who you are.
I'm Fran Clark.
Yeah.
I was Fran Latour then. I was single, much younger. And
You started
I had
teaching in '38.
38, and we didn't have telephones, we didn't have lights, and we didn't have outdoor or indoor bathrooms until in the 40s, like you said. And that's hard when you're going backwards.
Now, where did you teach? Right up there?
Cannon's Corners.
Oh, at Cannon's Corners in the little schoolhouse up there.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't exist anymore.
No, it's a house now.
They turned it into a house.
Turned it into a house.
How long did you teach?
All together or up there?
All together.
38 years.
Isn't that amazing? Now, when you went there in the morning, did you have to light the fire, or
Oh,
did somebody?
I had a fireman, one of the kids, and he was lazy, and it was always cold when you got to school.
What was his name?
I told him. Well, I met him at an anniversary party once. He said, "Don't you talk to your old students?" He had kind of a big tummy by then. And I didn't recognize
God, it wasn't Gordy Little, was it?
And I said, "What's your name?" And he told me his name. And I said, "I sure as heck do remember you because our school was always cold. We had to sit around like an inside furnace and put your feet up on the furnace to keep warm." I wouldn't do that now.
Well, in many of the schoolhouses, the school teacher, and they were mostly females back in those days, had.
There wasn't enough money for the men then.
Well, you know, that's even true in the year 2002, unfortunately. But a lot of times the teacher would have to go to school and she'd bring a pot of soup with her or
Yeah,
something.
We used to cook lunches on the stove. Yeah. And we had they talk about things being sanitary. We had a jug and a ladle, and everybody drank out of the same ladle. Nobody
They still
died.
do in Altona and the countries.
Altona?
Yes, they still do.
Isn't it fun? Isn't it fun to remember?
Has a bucket with the dipper.
Wait a minute, look at this, umbrellas.
Whoops, sorry.
Yeah, tell everybody who you are.
Lorraine Hardy.
Oh, of course, Lorraine. Isn't it fun to
I used to be
remember?
McLaughlin.
Isn't it fun to remember? Look at on this.
It's just too bad Ward's moved out. She could have done that.
There, look, wait a minute. I wanted to. There's so. Your lunch, Peg.
Eventually. And now I'd like to say about this merchandise. Whatever you got in this Sears and Roebuck or Ward's, it was good for about 25 years. And they always made good in case the merchandise didn't turn up the way you expected. You could always return it.
They always had a guarantee. They did. I remember that.
Respected and carried out. It was very nice.
Somebody came to my office this very morning and said they ordered something in November from a firm which we can't mention now. They cashed her check all right, and she never got her item. And I work as a crime victims advocate, and she asked me what she could do. So I gave her some advice. What are you looking at there? Rings, watches, pocket watches. Look at you want a genuine diamond ring? These diamonds are selling for $86. We're on page 341, by the way. $86, $67, $61. So you know they had to be real.
I pass.
You know.
Gordy, you know when they advertise genuine, it is genuine.
Yeah.
Because things were so much cheaper those days.
Yeah. And they were pretty honest, except for the patent medicines. Some of the advertising they did for the patent medicines, remember, were pretty bizarre.
This catalog in your home, it was like a Bible, I mean. It was as respected as a Bible.
It really was. You know, when you stop to think about it, the importance of this catalog, because it came out once a year.
Right.
After a while, they put out maybe twice a year. Calvin and I were saying, how about the poor mailman when they had to deliver this to your door?
That was it.
If he had 100 people on his route, he was like poor Santa Claus, huh? Big thrill for everybody when you got the catalog. The little kids their eyes would get as big as saucers, especially before Christmas time. They'd figure out what they wanted.
Yeah, look at that.
This is jewelry. don't even know what a hairpin looks like.
Gee, I have some.
Yeah, we got lots of them at our house, bobby pins and hairpins.
Yeah.
Bobby pins.
Bobby pins and hairpins. And hairpins, I can remember old hairpins being made of bone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
bone,
right.
celluloid and bone.
Ebony sometimes. Only one color, I guess.
Because, you didn't just use these hairpins to hold your hair. They were fashion statements, because a lot of people had long hairdos, right?
Yeah.
Bobby pins, and they started putting their hair up on bobby pins. And
Bobby
everybody had curly hair then.
I can remember as a youngster that one of my favorite ladies that went to our church used to have the hair all twirled and like a bun on each side. You remember that style where it would be rolled on both sides?
Hmm?
I just remember that.
Those are the good old days, just the same.
I have a
Yes.
picture, and my hair are wavy, and they come and about like this here. Can you imagine?
Wavy hair?
I went to the hairdresser to have that
Oh,
done.
you did, huh?
Oh, yes.
Well, you still got beautiful hair,
Well,
Oh, it's so
we
thick and it's
talked-
got a natural curl in the back.
We've talked about collar buttons, and here we are on
I've
page.
got a couple boxes filled with all kinds of buttons I've saved, throughout the ages. Yeah, when I threw
Throughout
them
the
away,
ages.
I cut the buttons off from the garment when I was ready to throw it away, and I've got 2 button boxes full of beautiful buttons made out of bone, genuine bone.
It's a good point that you made there. You said before you throw it away, you cut the buttons off and put it in the button box.
Right.
Now they call that recycling. Well, we were, you had to recycle
Now
those
I looked in the closet, and there they were up on the top shelf, and I don't know what I'm going to do. There's some beautiful buttons.
Well, save them because some of the older buttons are now beginning to be worth a lot of money. I wrote a whole column 2 columns about button boxes because they're so wonderful. Just to go through the buttons, the kids used to play with them, make games out of the buttons.
Yes, there is games that we used to play. Who was that now? We used to use
Oh, see how you are. Button.
We got the button.
Now tell me what we used to do with a big button about 1.5 inches in diameter, and we'd put string through it and make a loop.
Oh, I know, the
Make a yo-yo.
the game. Now let me recall. This goes way back. The boys. Let me see. It comes
And
to
you
mind
pull
like
it.
this. Yeah.
And
You
the
got
button
right
would
idea.
spin, and when it would wind itself up, then you'd pull hard, and it
Right,
would unwind and spin in the other direction.
Yes, I remember so
What do you
well.
call it?
Yeah, it's a yo-yo.
What do you call it?
See, yo,
Spinning
she
button,
got it.
I don't know what you call it.
She
It's
got
a
it.
yo-yo.
Yo-yo. That.
Well,
Yeah.
it was kind of a yo-yo thing. The regular yo-yo is the 2-sided
You
pieces
wind
of
up
wood
and
and.
put your brother or
My, we
sister's
could
hair
talk
and
all
wind
day
the hair
long.
on.
Now this catalog.
Oh, you did that kind of stuff, huh? Your brother or sister's hair?
So many stories we could
this
connect to
year,
this catalog.
people asked me what I wanted as a wedding gift, and I wanted this.
What's that? What is that?
And it costs,
Oh, cufflinks?
no, that's a comb and a mirror and,
Oh, there's many sets like that, sure.
Imagine.
well, that's what I wanted.
Dresser sets, they would call them.
And
Can you imagine that?
The
Not too
glory days, that's what they were.
Oh, it's wonderful. This catalog is, Calvin said this catalog is
I got
something
that
like
set.
600 pages. This is genuine Rogers
Yes.
silverware.
Wow.
And every spoon, every knife had this Rogers name silverware. I've got some still.
cabinets around the North Country. I'm sure you can still find these
Oh, yes.
nice trays. See the prices?
Boy, I haven't
This
seen
is,
that catalog for so long.
Page 361. There's the silver leaf through here. Look at
And
There's a razor
that-
strap.
You know, men use these to shave with.
they also
Yeah, my father did that.
they also chased their kids around the house with them and told them to hold on to the newel post while you got chastised for something nasty.
It was those days.
Well, the razor strap is what really you were kind of afraid of that. And for the benefit of our viewers who have no idea what a razor strap was for,
But it wasn't a double one like this. It had to be a single one like that.
that you
My father strapped the kids. He didn't use a double.
but use it to strop the razor. Now we're looking at page 368 now, and we're looking at what the
Huh?
Oh, sure. Yeah, the mustache cup. You'll
say that word.
You'll see, as a matter of fact, you'll see shaving brushes, safety razors. Many of our viewers will know that we had Pal Blade here in Plattsburgh for many, many years.
My father worked at the Pal Blade.
There you
I
go.
think my father did.
You can buy single and double-edged blades.
Now it comes to, I had a piano, one of those high things there, like so.
Okay, let's
My
go.
mother.
Now, we had one when I was a kid.
Did you?
I took my mother's, probably an early Electrolux or something, and I took the hose off the where the bellows were, and I hooked up the end of the vacuum cleaner
Yeah.
and put my favorite roll in and played that thing so fast it almost broke the end. And I just let it go. I thought that was so cool because I didn't have to pump. That may have been one of the times when my mother chased me with the strap. I'm not sure. Phew, that's page 370 with the player pianos. Look at the
Just like that.
Yes, mine was.
Exactly like this.
Mine had the legs on.
$5,
Yeah.
$7. Yeah.
Let me see.
When the springs broke, that's another thing I did quite a bit as a youngster.
The spring?
It's called overwinding it,
Yeah.
because I love to see it wind and play it down. And,
You remember the records we bought? First of all was Caruso.
oh, Caruso, what a voice.
Yeah, Italian man he was. He died young.
These are not only the record players, and look at the old Columbia records and all the records you could buy. I bet you if you looked at some of those
Yeah.
songs, Sweet Emelina, I can
Oh my
see it right
gosh.
there, huh? 10 little fingers and 10 little toes. Have you ever heard of that song?
I'm.
How about the Alcoholic Blues? There's one for you right there.
I don't remember that.
A lot of people were singing that
A
yesterday.
lot of people, yeah, I guess
I
they
bet they
were.
were.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, here's one of my favorite all-time songs. Can anybody see that tiny print?
Alice. Ten little fingers and 10 little toes. Remember that one.
These were all the hits of the day in 1922.
Memories, memories.
Yeah, isn't it great?
Just wonderful.
Well, I told you this was going to be fun. When Calvin mentioned this idea to me on the telephone this morning, I said, yep, it'll be a good one.
Neil.
Yep, just got it through. Look at this. This is page 390.
Did you ever have, I hate to say this, did you ever have a fine comb in the house?
Oh,
with a
sure.
bunch of kids.
Oh, of course. And you know why the fine cone was there, too,
Of
don't you?
course, but mothers always got them, whether that you needed it or not.
You got it?
Because when you went to school, you met all kinds of kids with dirty
You've got to go through the, yeah.
true.
Hygiene was not quite the same as it is now. I mean, you know, you took your bath once a
Yeah,
week,
that's
whether you
fine.
needed it or not.
I still
Right.
have one.
A shaving brush. Look at the cone. Look at. You think the whisk broom is a new invention?
Yes, I
I
did
don't
for
know.
my
What did you
time.
What did you people brush your teeth with when you were youngsters? Can you remember? I'll tell you what we used. I can remember my mother going out and bringing home cans of Dr. Lyon's tooth powder.
That's right.
And when we ran out of Dr.
Like this, all the way around. No.
Now, they've got something they just invented. The more things change, the more they stay the same. You can buy a little round pad about this big that fits on your finger, and if you're in your office and you got somebody coming in for an interview, you take this little pad out, which has been impregnated with toothpaste, and you just go like this, and then you throw it in. You don't have to see. You used to do it with
Of
cheesecloth.
course, yes.
Well, wait a
I'm
minute.
not ashamed to say the things. It's fun to just, and then more fun now other people have done it.
Well, don't you remember? My mother used, when we ran out of Dr. Lyon's, she would make some kind of a tooth powder out of what was it? Be baking soda?
Baking soda. Oh,
See?
yes.
You
Yeah,
learn.
soda is the best
Oh,
ingredient.
yes.
It does a lot of good for different things. A bleeding cut, if you cut your finger, you put it under, make a mixture of water and a half teaspoon of soda, and then you put your finger in there, in no time at all, it would heal. You didn't need to have anything.
I remember that because I cut myself all the
Oh.
time.
And baking soda is great for cleaning counters, sinks, and all. Another thing that's coming up that is very good is sold by, Kinney's and all. And I said, well, I'm going to make my own stuff. What was it? I wanted to use it for.
You know,
It's great for carpet cleaning. You spread it dry on the carpet and use your vacuum and it cleans right
did
off.
you ever
no
see?
smell, no
Ever see
nothing.
those little books with all the hints from Heloise? All the things you
Yes,
can make.
that's
You can
where a
make
lot of my-
make cleaning products. I mean, I think probably we even made soap. The soap that I remember the most
Made
was
with
not
lye.
lye soap, but I can remember. What was it? The yellow soap was Fell's naphtha,
Octagon.
and Fell's naphtha
Bell's-
yellow
Bell's
soap.
Yeah.
And you know why I remember the yellow soap? In my mouth.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was
my
gonna say that.
goodness. That was strong.
That's what happened when you say bad words. Your mother says you're going to get the soap. That had roughly the same effect as you're going to get the strap.
Yeah.
Maybe you got the soap and the strap on a very bad. I had a lot of bad days as a kid, you know.
It was terrible tough, but it made good, strong people live a lot longer than.
Yeah, I ate a lot of soap. I'll tell you that. I guarantee you that.
Another thing I'm trying to think of.
Uh-oh. Look at this. Mirrors. These are the sets with the combs that you were talking about before, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my.
Tend to.
Clocks, smoker stands, so many wonderful things. We saw early radios when we were looking through this before.
really?
Radios in those times.
Oh, sure, 1922. They were kind of strange looking. Sometimes you had we had one you had to hook up to a car battery. Because you know, if you didn't have electricity in your house, you hooked the leads to the car battery, and you didn't even have a speaker on it. You had earphones. You had to put the earphones on. And you know how we could listen to the radio as a family? My mother got, you know, those great big crockery mixing bowls?
Yeah.
She'd put the mixing bowl in the table, turn the radio on. My dad would tune it up in the earphones, put the earphones in the bowl, and we'd all gather around, and it would amplify the earphone sound in that bowl, and that's how we'd listen to the fights and whatever.
And you know, when we want, this is entirely different, and maybe they have the same things in here. When we were a big family, 7, and we used to, this isn't at all like what we're talking about here. You used to flip the tablecloth over, and it was George. He made the parcheesi. Remember parcheesi?
They're in here.
That was a game.
That game is
Yeah.
in here.
We had more fun out of that parcheesi than the new things to imitate that game, you know.
I saw a special on television last night about the history of Monopoly and how the first game was made on a piece of oilcloth.
Yeah, well, that's what it was. The tablecloth
And it was round.
oilcloth.
Isn't that amazing? And the guy who invented it took it to Parker Brothers to market it, and the Parker Brothers experts looked at it and said, nah, never go. It's got 56 things wrong with it. So he went back and started mass producing these at the rate of 2 games a day. And of course the demand was so great it caught on. So Parker Brothers all of a sudden came back to him a couple of years later and said, I think we like your idea, and marketed. How many games of Monopoly have you played in your lifetime? Huh?
Well, we had just one. Boy, we treasured that one, too. When we got through playing, we used to wrap it up in oil paper, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember we had a large family with 13 kids who lived up the street from us when I lived in Messina Center, and we'd go back and forth with the Monopoly game. I always said before, if we ever dropped all the Monopoly game walking back to our house, we could just get the Rabideau family there, and they would be able to pick up one kid, one piece, and we'd have the whole game before we got home. Okay, let's look through some of the rest of
Oh, look
it.
at the cigars.
You want to buy pipes and cigars? There you go.
My father only smoked a pipe.
You know, there was a time in American history and other history where women smoked pipes and it was fashionable to do so. Corncob
Not
pipes.
my game time. They used to love this. You know, Gordy. The way I always impressed me. My husband would go to the Elks and we'd sit on a chair, and I'd look out, and every table had a woman, and it impressed me. It stayed with me a long time. She'd hold her elbow like this over the tabletop. You'd be sitting, and let me see. She had the elbows on the table, and she'd have her 2 fingers like that with the cigarette, and it was more style and more fashion than actually. She never, well, not she, but every woman who was there had the same style of just holding.
Just that way.
Yeah, and just that way, and whether they smoked it or not, but it was just the idea of holding that cigarette between the 2 fingers showed she was a lady of the day.
Oh, see? And sometimes they would have the long cigarette holders.
Oh, yes,
Remember
yes,
that?
that's another one.
And a young girl who didn't smoke, she was not popular with the boys.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
You never smoked, Rita, did you?
No, I never did.
I never did.
Never
Never matter if they were smoking that way, and I love style.
Well, that's probably why we're all sitting around here today.
I never smoked. I never
The
drank.
others are gone.
Yeah. Well,
I thank God I didn't.
there's the remedy, folks. Don't start smoking. I haven't smoked since 1975, so maybe I'll be here for a couple.
And I don't care about drinking.
How did you happen to stop on page 400? Candy and gum. You know me very well, don't you?
Oh, I sure do.
And you know the best part of it is on
Have a little packet of that stuff.
What's
Does that- I
Simpson?
bet
That
you.
is what-
See, young people have no idea.
What's
Sen,
Simpson?
it's little tiny things that looked like little tiny pieces of charcoal, like little miniature pillows, and you pop one in, put it under your tongue, and it was supposed to make your breath smell.
Yeah, that's what it was for breath.
Sen. And now you see like the tic-tac.
Tic-tac.
It's a good thing we got the young person here. You got the bus driver just to let people know. And look at the,
And chocolate cherries,
who-
my gosh. That's
but who can remember this kind of gum right here? Blackjack gum. I can.
I can because I've seen people lately. I've seen people with blackjack.
Sure, blackjack gum.
The men who smoke, sometimes their wives didn't like that, so they use that
Yeah.
stuff.
Sen.
And the men who drink, when they drink too much, they put that stuff in their mouth. So
You mean they were trying to
nobody
deceive their wives even
they
back
were
in those
half
days?
drunk or all drunk, but
You know, when I said before, when the Montgomery Ward or Sears or Spiegel catalog came in, everybody wanted their turn at looking at it.
Yeah.
And the little girls would look at a page like this at 402.
that's
About 15 Christmas carols or laughs. Oh, aren't they beautiful?
I had two dolls. One was that long, the other one was that long. I had two in my life. We
Just
were
two?
poor.
Oh, boy. Look at these. Genuine kid body doll, celluloid. You know, radios, for example, in the 1930s were celluloid. The combs, these brushes that you would buy, the handles would be made of either bone or celluloid, and that was the precursor of plastic, because plastic wasn't invented until later. And actually, celluloid was a kind of plastic. And there's toys of all kinds. Beautiful toys. Look at the children's carriages. Take a look here.
I remember that. But they were soft and easy on the little babies.
In England, they call carriages, baby carriages, perambulators.
Yes, that's right. You
Or
don't see anything
prams.
here.
See?
Wait, put your
All right.
there. Something like this now.
At that time, the men were not carrying the babies much. That was not the fashion. That was always the mother carrying the baby.
Well,
And,
that's been.
to this day, I admire the young fathers who do so much for their babies.
That makes a big difference. The women have always been the ones who had
Yeah,
to start
but now men are
the
back.
nurturing. Look at these
Men.
toys.
Look at the teddy
On
bear.
page
I know, you know,
408.
They're not like the cute ones they have.
Great big. Look at.
One or two oranges in that socks. You did the same thing, yeah?
If you got an orange,
Yeah,
or
mine
if the
too.
boys got a jackknife. Now the boys can't
Oh,
carry
yes.
jackknives anymore, but
Right.
every youngster had a jackknife,
Show
and you
their
always.
manhood.
It's always.
There was
See?
there was a place
That's an
on
old-fashioned
some
one,
of
isn't
the
That's a
it?
very old jackknife.
See?
I have a collection of
Oh, my,
jackknives.
must touch it? Yeah, well,
I keep it very sharp.
Ooh, I won't take it away from you.
And yes, I've cut my fingers on it more than one time. But
There
boys,
was a little pocket like on the side of the boots.
high tops. You can probably buy high tops in this catalog. I was so proud when I got a pair of high tops with the knife pocket in the side, because it was a little pocket that would snap, and you'd open it and take the jackknife out and put it back in your high top boots.
That made the boys feel so much manly like their papa.
The
That
jackknife.
true?
I was running home from school one time in Carthage, New York, when I was 7 years old, and I must have thought I was Superman. I always had a very good imagination. And I went flying off this big rock and, of course, landed in a heap and broke my leg in the middle of nowhere. And I lay there for a long, long time before anybody found me. I could cry and holler very loudly, even back then. Somebody eventually discovered me and went to the doctors, and I had broken my tibia. And he said the only thing that prevented it from being a compound fracture was my high tops. They were just like having a cast on your leg. They were laced. They laced right up to the top, and they gently took that out, and they didn't even have to set my leg. See?
My goodness.
See what? You never knew this catalog would bring
I
back those
never
kinds of. Look at the toys. Look. Play telephones for the kids, and you could buy real telephones in your Sears.
Yeah, what was the
Cadillac.
telephone looking like those days?
Well.
Listen in, though. There were 4 on the party line.
14 we had on ours.
Oh, my God.
Everybody, 20, and each
22.
each one had a different ring.
They all
It
knew
was
what time they went to bed, what they were going to have for dinner, and on and on.
two shorts and two longs,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I was a 2 short. With the same numbers you had, 2 short and 2 long.
Oh,
Oh,
I didn't listen to all your conversations, did I?
Go ahead, you.
And
No,
you,
that's all I have to say.
you'd crank one long for the operator, and it was your neighbor who had the little thing set up right in her home, and you'd call her, you'd either call her Mabel if you knew her well, or you'd call her Central if you didn't.
Central. I always did.
See?
Oh, yes.
And you'd tell her what you want. You could, if it was somebody in your neighborhood, you'd say, "Can you ring me George?" Or the number would be 914. We had a 914F was one of our numbers.
812 Apple.
See, Rita? 812 Apple? Where the heck was that? In Plattsburgh?
No, that's my husband and I used to joke around with numbers. 812 Apple.
I look at some of the old city directories and look what the telephone numbers were.
Dress, mother playing with baby.
Days, in case you didn't know it.
Prices, I think.
Look at the toy. Look at the.
Look at that.
The popular game of Parcheesi, but it was
How much?
expensive.
How much?
89 cents.
Oh my God! And then people had to work almost a day before they could afford.
Chess and checkers, ring toss games,
And then I know that.
Ouija,
Yeah.
the game of mystery, the Ouija. It's a fun catalog. I
Oh,
told you we were
yeah.
going to have fun
We
today.
should come and spend 2 or 3 hours and look at it.
Look at this is Christmas.
Tinker toy.
These are books. You could buy lots and lots of books,
And stationery.
stationery, envelopes of all kinds. But look at this. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now
it is.
look at these beautiful we used to call
Oh,
them.
we had a table.
Now that's what we needed for our house.
Pure wood, though. That was good stuff.
Well, of course it
Not
was.
today. They don't.
Now what did they call these
know.
things?
don't know.
We used to call them.
And company comes over there.
Yeah, there are official names for things, and then there's names we call them, and we call them sideboards.
Sideboards is right.
you?
Yep.
Sure, there's a
It says dining room. I got it wrong.
see the
No,
colonial
that's what-
china
what?
cabinets.
Weren't used very much.
Yeah,
Just pretty things.
Past my nap time.
past your nap time. Are we keeping you awake? Is that what you're telling me?
No.
Now.
Oh, look at this.
Look, I hate those things.
Muslim
Yeah.
curtains, all kinds of curtains on page 486, 487. Look at the beautiful stuff. You could buy just about anything
And-
you wanted.
And
Look at
here's
stove.
the stoves.
Now take a
There's
look.
a reservoir, and this is where you kept the warm things for if you made a big dinner at noon. Put them in this oven,
We're talking
the
about
wet
page
one.
503.
and this is where the water was.
And my parents were very disappointed.
Why?
It didn't give heat like
They kept her cleaning and washing and all the time. Huh?
well, isn't that, but the heat and
Didn't
you know.
keep it too warm, huh?
no.
But just think, you had to cook with it in the summertime when it was
Fill up
90
this part
degrees.
with wood or with coal. This is your oven. This is to hold things warm.
That's the warming
and this
oven
is,
on the
yeah,
top. That's
and
the
this
reservoir.
was a reservoir.
And
yeah.
at some point in time, you might have been able to heat water in a actual tank
Yes.
that was next to it, a standing looked like a hot water tank.
They put the tubes here.
Put the tubes in, it would go through the firebox and heat the hot water.
Yes, but what a job! What a terrible job! And you had to clean it.
Well, everything was work back in those days. In case you forgot,
Yeah.
everything
You never
was
went
work.
to bed unless those things were clean.
Well, here's what you need. A meat.
Mike,
Mica, which they had to mine that material.
had to
Yeah.
make sure at night came that there were just ashes, dead ashes right in there. So
sure.
it wouldn't, cause a fire in the middle of the night while you're all asleep. And
Oh yeah.
yeah,
You had my father would
My God.
father would say, "We got to bank the stove."
Yes.
You remember that phrase, "Bank the stove"?
Bank.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we had coal, and you had to bank the coal.
can you get it?
Can you make it, Rita?
My poor father used to wear that.
All right, here we're
Oh,
going. You jumped ahead about 100 pages.
I know. I
Yes.
didn't try to cut you
look-
out of his.
that. But, I mean, today, if my mother were alive today, she'd say, put on your galoshes, and people would say.
That name was so familiar.
And you know, when we were kids and we had to put our socks on, my mother wouldn't say, put your socks on. She would say, put on your stockings.
Oh.
Never
Boy.
socks. She
And we
never
always
used the
wore
word sock.
black, brown, long stockings until we were about 10 years old. I've forgotten after that what happened.
I can remember my mother with what she called a darning egg. It would
Yeah,
be, it was
round
a,
like this, and she'd put it in the foot of the stocking, and she could darn the stockings. Is that the way you remember?
yeah, you can, yeah, and she would darn them. That's like that old recycling things. You had to fix
darn 'em.
things.
I had boots like this made of felt, red felt.
Red.
Those are women's hiking boots,
Where do you get the picture?
and they're beautiful. This is almost
Oh,
like,
yeah, I see.
you see
Now-
this Arctic here? This looks almost like felt in the middle and rubber on the sides, doesn't it, huh? Isn't that amazing? Red rubber boots, that's what it says, red rubber boots.
Yeah. Did you have to lace them right up from the bottom every time
Oh.
you took them off?
The women's
I didn't
hiking
always
boots,
left mine
look at the
halfway.
laces, soft brown
Gee.
elk leather, Goodyear welt. Goodyear welt. I mean, now look at the stuff you can buy right here on page 656, 657. Does anybody know?
Put around the horses' necks.
Horse collars. Right?
Yes.
He doesn't know that
You're
a
younger than
$5
me.
bill would be called a fiver or a fin, right?
Mhm.
Remember the names we used to have for money?
What? I forgot.
6 bits,
Oh, God. That's what the boys used to say. I never did.
Mm. 2 bits,
Yeah.
6 bits.
Mm.
Look at the horse. Go ahead. I was just going to tell you about Sid Spiegel and the
I
and the
said
ferry.
Papa and the Mama. That's the way I always thought about them, Papa and Mama.
There's a horse blanket.
They used to have that one.
They used to have a ferry that was really a sleigh with horses that would go across the lake between Plattsburgh and Burlington in the old days. And they would plow one path so you could go over and one to come back, and you would get on the sleigh, and they would cover you up in buffalo robes.
Mm-hmm. I think they got a buffalo robe in here. Plow our
Harnesses, farm trucks. Isn't it wonderful to see these old things? Look at the jacks. And there's a, has anybody ever heard of a whipple tree? Well, these are just about anything you would want. Now look at this.
a little over a year. We didn't have too much to do, and his father taught him how to make it. And then we started to save our apples, and I have to skip a lot. There's a lot of stages we had to go through before you could put it in the apple press.
Apple press.
Yeah.
Well, that's what would happen here.
Yeah, you see, we didn't have this sort of thing, so we had to do it by hand.
There's a And the carts to carry them in. Look,
Yeah, we had, and
got two
the
of 'em on my
darndest
front
job
porch.
was to walk.
really?
Yep. He worked there for 26 years.
Well,
Yeah.
I got two of them on my front porch along with this right here, which is the strainer. Yep. And,
We
and,
used to,
and
what we
members-
used to use, we'd wash them out and salt and water, soda and water. And we use them for various things afterwards, like putting flowers in them, branches,
I
vines.
I still have a few milk bottles.
And here's a butter churn. Oh, golly. I remember the days when I used to turn.
Butter churn.
Butter
Yeah.
churn, sure. And these are milk bottle caps.
Price
The
each
caps
one.
on a milk bottle were made of cardboard covered with paraffin. And you take the cap off, the flat cap off. You had to pick up a flap, remember?
Oh,
You put it
dear.
with your finger in there. My fingers were fat even as a little kid. I could never get it out. And remember in the wintertime what would happen when the milk was out on the porch?
Yes, it freezes.
You know where the cream would go on?
Right. And my mother would gather that cream and put it.
No, my mother
What's
didn't
that?
because I got it to it long before she. I'd take it right off the top. Boy, that was
Eh.
good.
I'll bet.
That was before the
My
days
mother-
when anybody knew the word homogenized.
Yeah,
Milk
yes.
was-
And pasteurized.
But the cream was on the top, and before you used it, you brought it inside, and you always
Yeah.
had a
My
shake.
mother used to save some off the top of the bottle, and on Sunday we'd always have that cream that she saved. My father belonged to the Grange, which is an organization amongst all the farmers.
Of course.
And he didn't like to see this. My mother had taken the cream and saved it for our ice cream for Sunday. He's kind of cute
I
about
saw a
that.
program on TV the other night. A gentleman collects the old time ice cream makers. Remember when
Oh
they made
my
ice
goodness,
cream?
yes.
There's a separator.
milk
Gee,
can-
that's funny. I should
Right
mention that.
there. Yeah, that's what we had right there. And very strict in milk.
Oh yeah.
The testing the milk.
Yeah.
Had
Still
to
are.
test certain, and this was when farmers each had their own. My gosh,
See,
it
all
makes
that-
me. I'm dreaming with.
What's
Wow.
wrong with dreaming? That's what do you think we're here for? Look,
Yeah, look.
remember I said you could buy a house. We're on page 630. They came from
It's
war.
all ranch style. It's just like mine.
Well, I told you could
There,
buy.
look. You remember these were put.
Before that, were built with plaster and lath.
Yes, hand
That
mixed too. Done.
Hand mixed plaster and lath. And look at some of this
What's that? Wallpaper?
wallpaper, roof
Waterproof
coatings
coatings.
for your.
Oh my.
Yeah, look at this. Here, you want some good paint? White lead and oil paint. Wouldn't that go real fine today? We poisoned our kids and didn't even know it.
Almost knock you out. And there's a paint book
Yeah,
and wallpaper.
sample. That, huh?
There was an item in there that I remember I looked at. It was bragging because there was asbestos in it.
Bragging because it. Oh, listen. If I had a nickel for every pound of asbestos I breathed in my lifetime, I worked for a whole year putting asbestos siding on homes on Long Island when I was in college, and we got paid so much per bundle. So you think as a young kid, I didn't slap a lot of bundles on a lot of homes, and you cut it up with a saw or a skill saw, and there was that asbestos siding that you still see on some of the older homes. And here I am in 2002.
And your lungs are still good.
Well, they're wonderful, as you
Because they
know.
always say the asbestos affected the
Our house in Canada, our house was covered with,
Asbestos siding.
yes,
Those big, huge
it was.
asbestos siding, yeah. Well, here's paint. All kinds of wonderful barn and house paint. You could paint your Ford for $1. Our special outfit includes everything you need: a quart of black auto enamel, half a pint of radiator enamel, one varnish brush, black Chinese bristles width 2 inches. And the total cost was $1.98.
Oh my God, they charge 100 and something today.
Oh, well. Look at, these are furnaces. Furnace was a huge register, like this big. And every morning you'd run down and stand over that register to put your clothes on. Of course, you'd also drop crayons and gum. And there was a heating surface on top of the furnace, and that stuff would melt. And that's right about the time that squeeze bag oleo first came out. And my mother said, "Do you know how to do this?" And I said, "Yeah, you just squeeze that little capsule in there, then you just go like this." And I was pretty strong even when I was a little kid, and so I squeezed one too many times. And the bag broke, and the squeeze bag oleo was all over the ceiling, and my mother was chasing me around the
Yeah,
house.
but she's giving you a darn good spanking.
I wouldn't be surprised if that big mark is still on that ceiling in that house, and I could take you there.
In 46, when we came back from the service, we had a furnace like this. We bought a little house on Tamila Road, and the furnace was installed. And I guess we paid $2,800 for the whole house.
For the whole house.
It was a log.
Oh, really?
It was a log, but it had been recovered. And I could wash the ceiling just like that.
You know, I don't, of course, you bring memories up for me, too. And I don't think a lot of our viewers are aware how many log homes still exist in Clinton County that are covered with
yeah.
regular siding. For example, my father-in-law's house, the late Alfred Vaughn, next to the little mini-mart in Morrisonville, no one would ever know it today, but there are logs inside the walls.
Oh, yeah.
And between Lion Mountain and Standish, when the mines were in full operation, a lot of the mining houses they built for miners' families were log homes. And all up and down that road, many of the houses you see now and houses you see in Standish, including many that I'm aware of, are log inside the walls where people just
Yes.
covered them over. And you go down cellar and you'll see that the floor joists are logs.
Our little house was completely unfixed. It was bought for the mall on Tamila Road.
See that?
Oh, yeah.
So it's gone now.
Was it warm? Was the log house very warm? They tell me that logs did.
Yes.
Radiators. Who remembers radiators?
I still got them in my house,
Well, there you go.
but they're not like these.
You could buy anything. You want a hand pump? How about an anti-freezing lift pump? that ran through the downspouts into your cistern, which was made either of rolled of tin or steel or cement cisterns.
Whenever my mother needed water, she'd pump that thing. There.
And somehow, one time when I was a youngster playing with the cat got in the cistern downstairs cellar. My mother chased me around the house that day too. But cats can swim. I found that out.
They can?
Yeah, cats can swim.
And how long after the cat got into the cistern were you able to get the cat out?
Oh, I got the cat out because my mother probably put me in the cistern and said, bring the cat.
She gives you a good rinse.
But the little hand pump was on the sink. And sometimes you had to prime it if it went dry.
Right.
Because they had leather valves. And sometimes you had to keep a cup of water out because we had a pump out front in the regular well. You had to keep a cup of water there to prime the pump before you could fill the...
Now, how did you get down in this cistern, the cistern underneath?
It was open on the top.
It had a little
It was open
floor
about
opening,
this.
a little
It was a
opening in the kitchen.
cement cistern that we had. And it was open, and the whole top of it was
But
open.
it was not open all the time. You had a cover on it.
There was a
See,
cover on
right in front of my kitchen, our kitchen.
The
was-
water.
Yeah, the water was way up.
It was very soft.
Yeah.
You could wash, have some good washing.
And you pump
Yeah.
until you got enough water to do the dishes.
Rainwater was very soft.
Yes, very soft. But there was a little smell. And when I arrived in the United States, we went to my husband's parents, and I was used at home. We had a big river, and we spoiled the water. In the city, we spoiled the water. And my father-in-law especially followed me to be sure that I turned the faucet because he didn't want the water to be
Wasted?
Did we have faucets those days, I wonder?
Well,
I've forgotten.
sometimes
Well,
we did.
they
Some
had-
cities had faucets.
Yes, but that was 46.
Yeah.
In 46. And they had a nice home.
You remember the water, the rainwater, and my mother would catch
Yeah.
rainwater
Um,
in the big wash tubs outside.
Yeah, outside the corner of the house.
And fireworks were still legal in those days, and my brother and I would send away for our annual supply of fire. And they said right on the box, they'll work underwater. So we tied a string around one of those silver ones about this long with a fuse that came out of the side and put a rock on it and lit it and put it in my mother's wash tub to see what it would do out back. And guess what it did?
What?
Blew the bottom out of the wash tub.
My
That time it was a broom that my mother chased me with.
I bet
I
you
was-
got a licking for that.
I was just one step ahead of her for most of the time. But she was in pretty good shape, and she had this big long broom. And I went one way, and she went the other way.
Did you
And
get a taste of
it
that
was,
broom handle?
it was sad. It was pretty sad. Good, when you go and think about it. And here, there are tools, lots of wonderful tools
Hammers
for the men. Hammers,
Yeah.
drill presses.
And there's the old Fords. Cold weather necessity. Look,
Spotlights and auto lamps.
we had the first 4-day Ford
Model 8.
Model A, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's black curtains on page 576, 577. Here's and those are the tops for your cars. Yeah.
Were they able to purchase a car through the? No.
Yes, and later in Montgomery Ward and Sears, you could purchase cars. Remember, we mentioned the Henry J as being one of those cars
I
you
didn't
could
remember
purchase
the Henry
through
J,
the
but
catalog.
the Ford
Yeah.
A.
And
Do you know that the men, there were men sitting in the back of the old cars. When there was a big hill, the men got up
help
and because most of the time they had to push, or if they didn't have to push, they walk.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
remember that?
Well, many of the cars right up through the 1930s had very small engines that by today's standards, wouldn't be too bad. But in those days, you couldn't get as much horsepower out of a 65 horsepower or a 90 horsepower engine. And the Ford flathead engines, they were huge and heavy, and I know the blocks weighed over 400 pounds because I've lifted many of them. They still didn't produce a lot of power. You could make it up the hills, but you had to do a lot of shifting, right? But back in the 20s and before that, in the teens, they couldn't make the hills a lot of times. Well, look at the stuff. Red and gray
Tires.
inner tubes. Does anybody was rationed, and the rubber business went into producing for the war effort. And so you had to make do with what you had. And we lived 20 miles from New York City, and we would take bets on how many flat tires we would have. And I was telling my son, GR, who was home for the holidays, that we used to have as many as 7 flat tires going from our house to New York City. My father had missions. He was a minister, and he'd had a mission in Harlem and one in Chinatown. So we'd have to go in often. And every time that would happen, he would have to get out, jack up the car, take the tire off, break the bead. My father was a big, strong man. Break the bead, get the tube out, put a patch on it, put it back in the tire,
It's all true.
put it back on the car,
All true.
and blow the tire up by hand. And then we go another mile, 2 miles, and you might be getting the impression that I wasn't a very nice kid. But
When you were faced
but
with
I would-
something like that,
but
you're going to be all smile.
I didn't realize this was such hard work for my father, and so I was doing a nasty thing. We'd be going down the road, and I'd reach my hand out the back window on the top of the car, and I'd go. And my father would say, "Oh, another flat."
You mean you were a mean little kid?
Well, my father would get back at me because, like me, he would always clear his throat. And he'd always drive with the window down, and he'd spit out the window, and I was in the back seat, and, well, nature, what it is, would blow so he had ways of getting back at me.
Well, I was very fortunate that there were three times the tire became bad, and it gave my husband and I the chance to start loving each other.
Well, you see, he always made believe the tires were bad and you ran out of gas. I know. Well, back in these days, on page 566 and 577, you could get a tire that was guaranteed for 10,000 miles. Good oil is upwards of $2 a quart. Once in a while, you can buy it around $1. And here's engine oil, and here's sprockets, bicycle accessories. Look at this over here. Oh, on page 564. Because bicycles were pretty big by then. I never tried to ride one of those big wheel bicycles. Remember with the big wheel and the... Look at the bicycles. coaster brake model. That was a big deal.
It was the only fun game we'd play on a Sunday.
$1.65.
Sunday
Is that what they call a sticky wicket?
Yes, all depending on those hoops that they had.
But roller skates. Remember the roller skates where you had to have a key? Clamps around your feet, and you took 3 steps and they fell off. And they didn't work very good on sneakers. I found that out. They're not very good on sneakers. But there's ice skates. Look at Northlight Ladies Tubular Shoe Skates. Wow. And skis. Uh-oh. Skis were pretty expensive, anywhere from 65 cents to $1.29. Norway Pine. We used to use, and my wife will confirm that she did too, jar rubbers. Because we didn't have skis. We had old skis without any laces, so we'd put the jar rubbers, you know, those rubbers that you put on a mason jar, over our shoe and over the end of the ski, and down the hill we'd go. Jar rubbers.
The
pine wood
Nobody
was
even
one
knows
of the
what-
best kind of woods they used those days.
Yeah.
More expensive and light in weight. That's why they used the pine.
No shoe. How about you, Rita?
Takes it back.
Isn't it
Way back.
absolutely-
Reminiscences.
It's great to remember, and it's great when you can look at something like this that just sparks so many memories. Now, I'm just a little tiny bit younger than you are.
You're quite a bit younger.
But we lived in rural areas for many years.
I
and
did.
do
I lived in
remember
Chazy.
a lot of things connected with our childhood. Fond memories, huh? And the best part of it is for you, you can remember them in French and English.
boat.
Listen, have a wonderful day, ladies. Thanks so much for spending this early 2002 with us here.
You're welcome.
And we'll try to give you a clue as to when this is going to be on television so we can all watch
wouldn't
it
that be
together.
nice?
Our
Oh,
thanks to Kathleen and all the folks
it
here
was
at
Kathleen. I
in the
thought-
senior center that invited us here. I've always enjoyed coming here and talking with people, reminiscing, telling stories, and reading stories.
My goodness.
And maybe I'll find one of my old catalogs, Calvin, and we'll have another session. Who knows? Because I got some great old catalogs and great old books.
That would be a
at
wonderful
home.
book if you were left all alone in the woods and or outside, to dream all the things that ever happened in your life.
Just wonderful memories. And what was the catalog that we used to get that had all the novelties in it? I just remembered it.
Charles and William?
Was it? Or Johnson? I can't remember. That had all the novelties. And I can remember saving my money for the little things that said there was an X-ray box and another thing that said it was you could throw your voice, become a ventriloquist. You put this thing in your mouth and you could throw your voice. Or whoopee cushions, where you could blow up the cushion and then somebody would sit on it, would make the noise, or fake dog doo-doo or something that you could put. Oh my goodness. Listen, we could talk all day.
Sure could.
We could talk right into the next year, 2003.
Yeah, I never
But
thought.
thank you all for being. Washing machine.
What's that? Oh my golly! Oh my goodness! A boiler for boiling the clothes with
You
some.
boiled your clothes.
Yeah. And then
I bet you never
Right.
used one of these right up here, did
What?
you? Fill it with hot water, and that was my job to use this item on page
Yeah.
533.
You rinse here and you rinse, the last rinse is here.
Yeah, see?
See that?
Isn't that
This-
wonderful?
There's a ringer.
Oh,
Yeah,
work, huh?
Oh, I guess so.
my, isn't it wonderful when we think back how far we've come
Turn that
along?
too, right?
Always
I think
does.
it's just
Close, agitated. You had to crank it and
That is not amazing, huh?
solid copper boiler.
Got
Yeah,
one.
imagine.
Got one.
Copper.
I got one.
My aunt
You
brought
have?
me up
You
with
still
Right now,
have
today.
copper?
Yeah.
Well, I declare.
See, these guys are starting a whole new chapter, and it's almost time for us to go home. We'll do it again, kids.
Well, we
Thanks so much.
enjoyed-
Have a
Oh, I'm-
wonderful day.
You too now, thank you.
Keep smiling.
I
Yes.
did not bring you the picture
Picture
of
of
All the time.
Churchill.
Churchill. She promised me, but she
If I had
will.
known this morning, I would have brought it.
And
Yeah.
you would have
If I'd
baked me
known
a
on the
cake
day
too,
I was
right?
in, I'd have worn my own.
Have a wonderful New Year, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this program.
yes, and I
If you have any suggestions, just give us a ring. Calvin and I are not very hard to find. If you know anybody who would like to help us underwrite this program so we can do more programs like this, please call Calvin at Hometown Cable, 2 words, on the Ridge Road in Champlain. And who knows where we're going to be next time for our little corner.